Well, joining me now is the head of the Palestinian mission to the UK, Ambassador Husam Zomlot. Ambassador, thank you so much for joining us here on Sky News this afternoon. What is your response to that?
Good afternoon, Kimberly. We welcome the Amnesty International report. It does provide damning evidence after years of documentation and study and research of Israel's apartheid and segregation system. It goes a long way to describe the crimes against humanity that Israel is guilty of. And Israel has come up with its own system of oppression, one that has layers and layers to it, but with one constant, Kimberly, one constant. If you are Jewish, you have more rights in law than if you are a Palestinian Christian or Muslim. That is what the report has completely captured. This applies in all of historic Palestine, in Israel as defined by the 1948 armistice lines, as well as in the occupied Palestinian territories Israel captured in 1967, including East Jerusalem. So Israel discriminates in law and practice against the Palestinian people. All you need to do, Kimberly, to work out that is just to spend a little time in Palestine to see the full-fledged apartheid, the settler colonialism, the military rule that is really aiming primarily at displacing and erasing an entire nation and bringing in new colonial settlers. So Palestinian people and institutions have been saying this for decades, since 1948. We do say this for nothing but for what we have lived. It's not just something we study. Since 1948, Kimberly, we have both Palestinian Christians and Muslims have been not allowed to return to our own land and homes. We were forced out of in the wars. If you are an Australian or British or French person who can demonstrate you're Jewish, you can immediately be granted the right to return and citizenship. You can live wherever you are, wherever you want, including in the occupied West Bank and East Jerusalem, as you may have seen live on TV only a couple of days ago, evicting people from their homes in Sheikh Jarrah, in Silwan, and everywhere. The situation in the West Bank is absolutely horrendous.
Let me no, I don't want to jump in. Obviously, these are all documented. This is what the Amnesty report says. But let me put to you what the Foreign Ministry have said. So a spokesman, Lior Hayat, said that Amnesty was using double standards and demonization in order to delegitimize the existence of Israel as the homeland of the Jewish people. And the Foreign Ministry, in a separate statement, have said that these are the exact components from which modern anti-Semitism is made.
Kimberly, anti-Semitism is a real and pressing problem. Any right-thinking person with the good heart should be opposed to anti-Semitism, as we should be opposed to any kind of racism. We must uproot anti-Semitism because it does exist. But the charge of anti-Semitism must not be used to shield Israel, Kimberly, from criticism or blind anyone to the facts of history. The very fundamental and unavoidable fact that must be addressed is this. Israel was built upon the expulsion and dispossession of most of the Palestinian people, and it is ongoing until now. There is no contradiction between holding Israel as a government, as a state, to account for its apartheid and other crimes against humanity, and being fiercely opposed in word and deed to anti-Semitism. It's the very same fight. And if you allow me, Kimberly, the idea that we Palestinians are somehow anti-Semitic because asserting our rights and insisting on justice is ludicrous. It's just that had our oppressor not been Jewish, last sentence, had our oppressor not been Jewish, we would have been fine with it. That is clearly a ridiculous proposition.
Let me put some other arguments to you. The fact that it is the only inclusive democracy in the region, the fact that they are building these accords, the Abraham Accords, they were just in Abu Dhabi with the Emiratis. You know, they're building peace within the region, and some say that within your own factions you don't even have peace.
Well, go speak to their own citizens. I mean, there are 68 laws that discriminate against Israeli citizens who happen to be non-Jewish. It's very well documented. Go see what the Knesset has approved only a few years ago. The nation-state law explicitly saying that the right to self-determination is exclusive to the Jewish population. So to claim that Israel is the beacon of democracy in the region, that they have struck some arms deal with some regimes here and there is not peace, is not justice.
That's not what the Abraham Accords are, though. The Abraham Accords are not simply an arms deal. That's unfair to portray them as that.
But the Abraham Accords and those who signed the Abraham Accords keep saying that the rights of the Palestinian people are sacred, that they must be upheld, that the Palestinian people are oppressed, that Israel as an occupation must end. So there is no contradiction in actually making sure that we as Palestinian people, we as international legal institutions like Amnesty International actually take the action. And the most significant part of the report, Kimberly, is the recommendation part that the UK government must take immediate action given its historic responsibility, the UK historic responsibility on Palestine, the Balfour Declaration that has promised our land, and the action is very well defined. The UK must ban settlement products, the illegal settlement product, stop arms trade that end up in violation of human rights, revisit the issue of UK companies that work in these illegal settlements, recognize the state of Palestine. And
Ambassador, do you think that will happen?
And what we have seen, Kimberly, regrettably, I'm not so sure given the toxic political atmosphere, the tilting towards right, the populism that we see, the calculation for political winning and political elections. I don't think the UK now is at a situation where we want it to be. But the real good news is the public opinion in this country is very renowned institutions like the Amnesty International, is your very strong civil society, is what we have seen only last May of hundreds of thousands in the streets of the people of Britain who will in the end force the British politicians to actually take the right course of action as they did during the South Africa apartheid, the anti-apartheid movement. Remember, Kimberly, the UK politicians were not on the right side of history then. They might not be now, but this wave of international solidarity is going to force them into the right direction sooner or later.
Okay, Ambassador Husam Zomlot, thank you so much for your time this afternoon, excuse me.